Daniel, it's good to have you with us, and good morning.
Good morning, Lee.
All right. Now, beyond infrastructural decay over time, can we trace much of Nigeria's power challenges to the so-called privatization or unbundling of PHCN? Did we actually deregulate the sector?
To start off with, privatization was a good step. While due process was followed in privatization, due diligence wasn't done.
Okay.
So
two different things there.
two different things. And when the private owners came in, they found that the data that they had received wasn't right, and they were suddenly holding on to assets which really had no value. The customer numbers were much larger than expected. The state of the discounts was not the way they expected to be. Okay. So due process was done as far as regulatory processes are concerned. Due diligence is another matter.
All right, very good. Now, the issuance of prepaid meters is still mired in controversy, where there are claims distribution is deliberately being hoarded.
Agree. Well, nobody's holding on to onto the meters.
Well, that's the general perception here.
We have to understand distribution is a long-term game.
Okay.
And any regulation that comes in for providing meters or improving assets, improving the distribution infrastructure, it takes 18 to 24 months just to be implemented, and that's fast. Right, that's like really record time. So, MAP, the Meter Asset Provider Program that that has been launched by NERC, it's due to be operational from this month onwards. So we had to see how it pans out, how it plays out. But you must give credit to the NERC for taking the step. You must give credit to the distribution companies for finishing their processes. Awarding permits to the meter asset providers. So a lot of things have happened. We just need to wait and give them some time.
All right, waiting is not a virtue right now because a lot of people, expect their meters as of now. But the thing is, these meters are actually being produced here in Nigeria, isn't it?
Well,
or it's a combination of both?
It's a combination of both.
Okay.
The regulation allows, mandates 30% local content. So 30% of the meters supplied to the customers must come from the local manufacturers, whereas up to 70% can come from overseas. Okay. We do have assembly factories here in Nigeria, but I don't believe they're enough given the demand that's expected.
Okay, probably that also contributed to part of the challenges of not getting the meters out on time, as it were, you think?
I wouldn't say so. The supply of meters has always been there. It's a question of regulations, having the right regulations in place, the right financing.
The final chain of getting the meter to the people, who distributes it to them, to the consumers? Is it PHCN? Or they were saddled with that responsibility of providing in the first place?
So the responsibility of providing meters to the customers lies with the distribution companies.
Okay.
The regulation is very clear on that.
It's got nothing to do with PHCN?
No. And however, with the meter asset providers coming in, it's the meter asset provider who would now go to your doorstep and install the meter at your place. So
free?
Without you have to pay. So the regulation has come up with the prices. I believe it's 36,000 something. Matters for a single phase and 67 or something. I'm not remembering the number for a three-phase. But the customers have to pay for it. However, the regulation also provides a very balanced way of financing the meters, financing by the customers. It says that you, as a customer, have an option of paying it either upfront or over a period of 10 years. So that really it eases the burden on you for paying for the meters.
Indeed. Let's look at other issues, Daniel. There was a huge jump of power supply from 4,000 megawatts to 2,039 megawatts late April, that was of this year. definitely this is abysmal by all standards. Now, what should Nigeria be ideally generating and why?
Well, okay. The quantum of power that Nigeria should be generating, they vary greatly. The federal government says around 22,000 megawatts should be sufficient. The industry or I would say, if you take economic output, potential economic output of Nigeria, you need close to 98,000 megawatts of power. And that's a huge variation.
Yeah, that's even the minimal requirement.
Right. And now you're producing 4,000. So federal government says 22,000, business says estimate 98,000, and you're having 4,000. And that is also not stable. The reason for this is actually collections.
Okay.
It's collections.
When you say collections, what exactly?
Yes. So it boils down to the distribution companies.
All right.
The distribution companies must be able to collect for the power supply to the consumers.
Okay.
There's a lot of power theft. There's a lot of meter bypassing, cable tampering. So people will just tamper with the cable.
Vandalism and all that. Yeah.
And all that, which hampers the distribution company's ability to collect the money for the power sold, which they now can't pay the GenCos, and the GenCos can't really supply free power for a long time. The GenCos today have a combined capacity, I think, around 12,000 megawatts, and they're happy to scale up. Okay. There are many people who want to come in and produce power in Nigeria. Yeah. You have gas, plenty of gas available.
I was going to ask you about the issue of alternative power sourcing itself. Yes. To shore up what you already have on ground, as in gas. There's even solar, but well, wind, we're not exploiting that as much as we should. And the North has all of this abundance, in abundance.
In abundance. Well, you see, Nigeria's problem is abundance.
Yeah, we're not tapping into it. All right.
So, well, there are renewable sources of power, and we should tap into them. However, you have something called as microgeneration, where you consume at the location of production, which is fine. But when you supply the power into a grid, say, for example, you did wind power, and you were to supply power into the grid, the producer of the wind power will want money for the energy supplied, and which is where the distribution company has to play a very critical role of collecting the money. Today, the GenCos receive around 30% of 30% money of the against the energy that they have supplied. That's very low. How do you expect a GenCo to survive when they just paid 30 against 100? It's not possible. All right. And that stops any further, discourages any further investment into producing more power, unless you're not producing power on top of your roof and consuming it yourself. That's a different matter.
Okay, so there's beyond the monetary aspect of it, in terms of the electricity itself. Obviously, there's a whole chain you have to go through. So there's a break in that chain, it becomes a problem, and that contributes to what we have at the moment. As talking about alternative source of energy, Nigeria has a quest for nuclear power, which is rather ambitious, if I may use that word. Now, how feasible is this, given our past, questionable tradition when it comes to maintenance here?
Well, yes. So it's a good thing to aspire and to be ambitious. Yes. It's actually a good thing. You set the bar high and you try to achieve it. It's a great thing.
All right.
However, we must understand that when you're producing nuclear power, you're producing power by hundreds of megawatts. Okay. The scale of production is quite high. Okay. And again, the entity producing the power will want money for its power. And if you do not have adequate wheeling capacity, transmission capacity, adequate distribution capacity, the distribution networks are not well oiled, and the collection is equally poor, just like the way it is now. Yeah. It's a big question.
A big question indeed. Hopefully, we'll see, how it goes. Now, let's take a look at the issue of power generation. I know you've already mentioned this, and distribution. There are two things, as it were. Nigeria has spent a lot of money on these infrastructures. Is it about, Yes, there's been a lot of decay. There hasn't been a replenishment of all this, all the materials, as it were. So, what are your thoughts? What are we doing wrong? What should we be doing to get it right?
Again,
a big question, I know.
Yes, but just like I mentioned previously, we need to wait.